Gentleman Jack, extra smooth, from the makers of Jack Daniels.
Okay, there it is. Who said that? What's your name? I can't, what's your name? Hey, Erica. Or for acknowledging that. I was talking to a friend the other day who actually was here, and I was complimenting him, so he thought. So he kept saying, he's probably laughing if he's listening, he kept saying, thank you. And there he is. Dear John Burns. My biological brother is here tonight, which is always cool when my family is in the building, so I don't know where Jamil is. He's over there, looking like a taller Omari. She like, you right. Nigga, you right. You right, old. Cause Ghost is 6'1", but your ass is 5'10". This is true. Ghost is taller. So I was talking to John Burns, a good friend of mine, and I was telling him certain things, and he was saying, thank you. And I said, you know, Burnsy, some of this stuff that I'm telling you can't say thank you to, because I'm giving you the base. I am reminding you of at the base level of what God made you to be. So it's kind of blasphemous to say the thank you when God should be the one going, he's reminding you of what at the core level you are. Right. So what we build upon that, a younger generation, deems it too many hashtags, first of all. But a younger generation deems it hashtag grinding, right? My cousin, me and Jamil's cousin, 365. I'm like, that's just work. Back in the day, our parents just said work. So the irony is, at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, I think we have done a disservice to ourselves in terms of how the lack of importance that we placed upon craft and upon actually being present in what you're good at and what you could potentially be good at, so to not just sustain a paycheck for your family, but to remain at the table. Whether that's folks allowing us at the table that don't necessarily look like us, or whether that's folks allowing us at the table that do look like us. And so, for me, being naturally an athlete, and then naturally a middle brother, a middle kid, I was always no stranger to being sort of a glue. I don't know any other middle kids can raise their hand in here. But it's one of those things in reality where the crab and the barrel mentality never made sense to me very early in life. And so I say that knowing that can be taken vague, but we specifically, as we get older, go, so what does that mean, the crab and barrel mentality? But very early in life, I was aware enough that it was a negative. And so the reason that I felt like Real to Real and Gentleman Jack, shout outs to obviously the umbrella of Jack Daniels, but the subdivision of Gentleman Jack and specifically Real to Real program, was that for me, I could sort of give an allowance to you guys, to people that wanted to be in front of the camera, behind the camera, work on the crew, work with the crew, work in production, work in accounting even, whatever, just within this industry, management agency, whatever. I always thought that if you look like me and you want to be in this business and you take craft serious and you actually are called to do what what you feel you want to do, then we can actually create more barrels. The crab in the barrel mentality is specific. There's an operative word in that statement, and it's barrel. It's not plural, it's one barrel. So the crab in the barrel mentality is that of a bunch of crabs, plural, trying to just savage other crabs in one barrel. And what I thought at was, if people can be of the same mindset as me, whether they want to put a hashtag in front of it or not, if they can really take their craft serious and be quiet enough, you know, not really talk a lot about what you're trying to, you don't need to tell people, just quietly do it and then make it happen. Then if you put all of those people in one field, we could all of a sudden create more barrels. And I thought Omari's legacy lives longer. So that's why I always was into, you know, definitely putting an oxygen mask on myself first. Don't get it twisted. But if I do that, I can equally love people in a better way. And so that's always been my mantra. It's very easy for me.
So I told y'all, I tried to warn them. I said, y'all gonna get some jewels. So speaking of that mantra, you had a chance to actually interact with the winners of the National Film Competition earlier. You want to talk a little bit about you guys' conversation and what you gleaned from that?
Sure. Out of respect, do I see Maxie? I see Jan. There they are. You guys should stand up.
Yes.
We'll give it up for the beautiful Jan and beautiful Maxie. Just as cute on the inside as they are on the outside. We were having a conversation, and you know, it was an interesting conversation because I had been asked earlier about an Instagram picture I put out in an interview, a phoner earlier in the day here in town when I landed, and the person was getting at, you know, it's really interesting. You put out, you say you vulnerably and you stated as such that I am hesitant to put out certain things because I am definitely a Capricorn, really private, and so I was hesitant to put out certain things. I was hesitant to join social media, but you know, you get dragged in social media, and so I put the picture out. It was about a job. The interviewer asked today, why do we as a people want to relegate, you know, ourselves, each other, to particular jobs, a box, what have you? And so I answered the question, and then of course Maxie and Jan and I were talking about that thing, that reality that you'll face as a journeyman, as a journeywoman within this business, as an actor, director, producer, writer, what have you, and that being the reality that sometimes your own neighborhood, that being us as a people, all of us colored brown, our own neighborhood, right when you're about to leave it, and not really say goodbye to it, but just say, see you later for a minute, a la my album title, Later Decatur, which is where Jamil and I grew up. Not goodbye, later, gotta go do this. And in doing this, your objective is, again, to create opportunities for more barrels to happen, where execs who don't look like us are forced by sheer metrics and numbers to respect us and go, I guess we gotta let them work. So we were speaking earlier about the reality that if it means and matters and is important to your heart, it comes across, 6-year-olds can call out bullshit. So it comes across from an artistic standpoint to the ear and to the eye of the receiver, of the viewer, of the consumer, and we consume a lot. Claim to not have a lot of money to travel, but we consume a lot, which is ironic. You know, we just spoke about that I wanted them, after the competition, to always remember going forward that their story mattered. And I mean the story that they're presently working on at that moment, whether your neighborhood of people want to watch you and embrace you doing that or not. And that was really the conversation, because I just think that President Obama was on to something in so many ways, obviously. But he was on to something when he said the scientists and the artists will move the world forward. And so I'm very much a proponent of that mindset.
Amen to that. One more question, and then we'll go to the audience. You just mentioned the album. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why you're choosing to express
That
through an
way.
album, since you're a Capricorn and so private?
Yeah. Well, but I'm a Capricorn who really is afraid of God. And so it was one thing to have a father that was very demonstrative in his questions as to why I didn't do a And equally, which I love about him, he would tell me when I did something right, which is very necessary. We often scold and criticize, we don't follow it up or but that was great. And so I feel like the biggest of which is the voice of God telling me, Omari, that's whatever, but that's cool, but that's whatever. And I hear it really loud and clear. And so I just felt like God was saying there's so much stuff in you. You're this ex-athlete who's such an artsy-fartsy cat that it doesn't stop at acting. And if anything, maybe you're acting, and I've heard this from many people who care a lot about me, that I'm not the actor that I'm supposed to be if I ever stop writing, if I'm not a poet, or if I'm not actively, pursuing my art as a poet. And as a musician, and my brother was big on that, music is no stranger to you, though you're doing it in more of a poetic form. This past year, I learned that I was way more musical, not only than I thought, but maybe way more musical than even being a poet. And so I heard God say, do it. It came in the mouth of a woman who bore two of my children. And so it's easier to listen to Jay when she says, you got to do the music. And I said no to jobs that weren't necessarily, to me, good for where I was in my journey as an actor last year. I kept saying no. It's like, damn, I need to book a job. I always think I got to counter Ghost. No matter how much y'all like Ghost, I got to counter Ghost. So for me, every hiatus, I'm like, how can I counter Ghost? And last year, the album was the way I countered Ghost. And I ended up doing, without telling Courtney Kemp or the show's producers, Curtis knew, but in terms of 50. But I would go from set 2 a.m., getting off at 2 a.m., and I would go to set probably at, 8 in the morning, and would be there until maybe 2, and then I would go to the studio and get off at 6 a.m. So I wasn't telling producers because they would have obviously been like, this is why you're dragging when you walk in here. But hell, y'all all know this, Ghost is in jail, so the nigga looks tired anyway. It doesn't really matter. Tired work. But music came of it, and we'll see what we're gonna do with it. I got addicted to the studio, so I made a lot of work, and now it's time to streamline it and figure out what's most viable. And there'll be many naysayers that are like, you can't do music, and I love that. I probably welcome that more than anything, so we'll see what happens.
Perfect. Well, we're looking forward to it. So we're going to open the Q&A up with Miami's own Miss Jill Tracy over here. Hey! Give it up for Jill. So you want to kick it off with our Q&A with a question that you have?
Yes, indeed. Well, I wanted you to share a little bit about, how are you, darling?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome back.
I'm good. I'm glad to be here always.
We did the Miami Gardens
Yes, 2 years
wine
ago.
and food together, yes.
2 years ago. Yes.
Here in the front row.
My
Came to see
team.
you. Here early to see you.
South Florida is very much a home. These ladies are speaking. I am always here, and I work on the Jason Taylor's Foundation, and I do Omari Hardwick Blue Apple Poetry Network, just trying to use poetry to clean the closets of these broken kids. So I'm here a lot, and that event that you're speaking about, Jill, was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Did we drink? Did we toast?
Yes, we did, my dear.
Okay.
We have good pictures and everything.
Cool.
So would you share a little bit with them about the Blue Apple Poet Society and what they're doing in the community?
We've been at it for a minute. There's a very dear friend, Seth Levitt, who he and I share a mutual best friend. The other brother in my household growing up, there were two. My eldest of which was my biological uncle, but he was raised as the oldest of me and Jamil and Malik, my older brother. Well, there was another brother raised with us named Marcellus Haynes. And Marcellus was roommates with Seth Levitt, who runs Jason Taylor's Foundation. As soulful a person and as loving a person, especially for kids, as you'll ever meet. So he asked me some years ago, being that you're a poet, what do you think about using the growing stature that you have to help the kids? Jason is obviously, foundationally, he's about continuing education, so why not use poetry? What do you think about it? It took me a nanosecond to be like, absolutely. So we use metaphor and simile, and a lot of these kids are rappers and want to be rappers, and so we sort of use whatever they're at. If they're at MCing, if they're at poetry, if they're scared of poetry, if they're scared to express themselves in that way on stage, we sort of help them learn how to build themselves by learning how to build a poem and then use it. And it went from maybe 7 to 13 kids to now about 930 kids.
Right.
In so many schools. And so I'm constantly here. I'm active. I talked to a fraternity brother earlier, and he was saying, "Oh, you're one of those. You're like really active with stuff." Yeah, to the chagrin at times of a 4 and a 2-year-old at home, but I don't. You know, you live one time on Earth, so they kind of know that Papa's got to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I had a chance to share with some of the young people.